Hello, hello. Welcome back, everyone. In the previous video, we got our API server up and running. In this video, we're going to be diving into JWT authentication. If you're not already familiar, there's a great video on JWT authentication from ByteByteGo. I'm going to be using this type of JWT authentication where we have a refresh token and an access token. The access token is a short-lived token that will be used to actually access our server resources. And the refresh token is going to be a long-lived token that is used to refresh our access token. So what we're going to be doing is when we generate a JSON Web Token when a user is authenticated, we're actually going to be generating a token pair. So we're going to be generating a refresh token and an access token. In addition, we're going to be adding an endpoint as specified in this diagram over here that allows the user to refresh and request a new access token. It's outlined in the ByteByteGo video, but we're also going to be refreshing the refresh token when a user hits the refresh endpoint. And this is basically just an improved security mechanism. Whenever the user requests a access token refresh, we're just going to go ahead and send both tokens. In addition, we're going to be storing our refresh tokens in our database. We're not going to be storing them in plain text. We're going to be hashing them. But the purpose behind this is that it allows you to basically deny list a user if their access needs to be revoked. So that's the entire point of storing those here. And we'll update this whenever the user decides to refresh the access token. To get started, we're going to actually implement a JSON Web Token manager, which is basically just going to be some facade that handles all of our logic for working with JSON Web Tokens. Before we start building that, I'm going to go ahead and install this JSON Web Token Go library. It's got a lot of stars here. It's pretty popular, so we'll go ahead and install this. Okay, we've got that installed. Now I'm going to go here and create a JWT file. Okay, and what we're going to do is create a new type, which is our JWT manager. And what we're going to have is a reference to our config, because something that we need to do when we sign our JWT token is have access to our signing key, as they say. So we're going to go ahead and add our config here. Okay, let's go ahead and create a constructor. Okay, that looks good. Now our config doesn't yet have our JWT secret. Let's go ahead and add that. And let's go ahead and add the environment variable for that. And we can just set this to anything for now. Choose a better secret if you need to deploy this. So let's say, and of course we need to refresh our environment variables. So we went ahead and did that. Okay, and the JWT manager is going to have two main responsibilities. It's going to generate a new token pair, access token and refresh token pair, and it's also going to parse and validate each of these tokens. So we're going to have two main methods on here that will handle those responsibilities. And I want to create a new type that basically holds both of these tokens. Okay, and what we can do is go to their documentation website to see how to sign a new JSON Web Token. So I think this is what I actually want to do. I want to do something like this. where we just say JWT new with claims, provide the signing method and the claims that we want. Okay, so this looks pretty good to me. I'm going to start with this code. Okay, so we've got the initial code here. Let's just go ahead and call this JWT token. Here we can actually provide a set of claims. These can be as a key value map like this. We can also provide a type with these already filled out. So I kind of like this. I want to use this, but there's going to be one additional claim that I want to add to this that is not provided, and that's the token type. I want to be able to distinguish whether something is an access token or a refresh token. So what I'm actually going to do is create my own set of claims here. So we'll just do it just like that. And we'll say token type. It'll be a string. And then we can say JWT registered claims is a embedded type that we use as well. So what I'm actually going to do here is provide custom claims, and token type will be the access token. This is going to be the access token. And we can provide registered claims here. And what we're going to provide is the subject. This is the user that we're providing here. Typically, the subject is the user principal, so it's going to be the ID of the user that's requesting the token, and that's why we have the user ID provided in here. Okay, we are going to have the issuer. The issuer is the server that's providing the token to the principal. So this is going to be basically just the URL of the server that's provided it, or the domain rather. So we have access to that in our config. I'm just going to create that at the top here and call this issuer. It'll be http j.config.api server host and the port, and I don't care about having the URL there. This looks good. Issuer. And we can do expires at and issued at as well. So expires at, let's just say it's going to be 15 minutes in the future. So what I'm going to do is create a reference to the current time at the top here. And I'm going to say now.add time.minutes. Okay. And it wants us to use a certain type of date here. So we can do jwt.new numeric date. That's what I want. Okay. And for issued at, we'll just provide the current time wrapped in this new numeric date. Okay, so we've got our token type, we've got our other registered claims. We are going to go ahead and sign the access token using our key. So let's go ahead and get a reference to our key here. JWT secret, okay. And it needs to be a byte array, so we can just wrap the string as a byte array here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do JWT token. Let's do signed access token error is equal to JWT token dot signed string. We're providing our byte array secret here. Let's go ahead and check the error. Okay, now let's do the same thing, but for our refresh token. So let's say let's make sure we call this JWT access token, just for clarity. Refresh token, this all looks good. We're going to call this refresh, and we will do the same thing here. Okay, we're handling the error here. And now what we can do is return a new token pair. Access token is okay, and one thing I'm actually going to do here is we're returning the actual object, the token returned here. JWT access token and then refresh token. Okay, and let me just make these pointers to make this all happy. One thing I forgot here on the refresh token is that we want to make this expiration a lot longer. So this will be something like days. Let's make this time dot. We can do an hour, and let's do that day, 24 hours, and let's just say we can do, let's do a month. That looks good. We've got the right expirations here. And one thing I want to add here is an extra step for each of these tokens. All of the token properties aren't actually populated until the token is parsed. So let's take a look at the parse. JWT.new parser. Let's just do that. Okay, we can't do all this yet until we parse the token. So we're going to have to scratch all this. This is going to be a mess, dude. Okay. Okay, so we've got the signed access token string and signed refresh token string. These are the values that are actually going to be returned to the user, but I want to return this whole token for convenience down the road. So the signed access token string is actually accessible on a parsed JSON Web Token. So I'm actually going to add one more step here that actually parses the token to populate this value with the signed string. Okay, so what I'm actually going to do is assign this to the token itself. There is a member that has the signed string value on it, or the raw string, and we can provide that on the token itself before we return it. So what I'm actually going to do is do JWT access token dot token dot raw is equal to what I'm doing is creating the signed version of the token. I'm immediately assigning it to the raw field of the token object. And this just allows me to return this entire object, and it'll make it a little bit easier to work with this down the road. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at the parse method. So we're going to have a raw string, basically. JWT.token. Parser, JWT.new parser. Parser.parse. We got the token string. And we have to provide a function that validates the JWT for us. So what we want to do is verify the signing method for sure. And we've got some code here that is helping us on that. And this seems fine. I'm going to make this a const at the top if possible. Okay. Say signing method. All right, and we'll say if t.method is not equal to signing method, then we'll return unexpected signing method. And what we need to return from here is the actual signing method secret. So okay. So let me dive into this parse method because I want to show, I think it'll be easier to understand why I did this assignment here. So if you look into parse with claims, parse unverified, what it's actually doing is the token string that's being provided and parsed is just being populated into this raw field. So rather than parsing the token here just to populate this field, I'm just doing it explicitly anyway. So hope that makes sense. Okay, and one more thing before we move on from this JWT manager is I want to add a helper method to determine whether a token is an access token or a refresh token. So all I'm going to do is basically check the claims and see if the token type is access or refresh. And let's pass in a token, which is, we're going to return a bool here. And let's just say token dot claims. Let's say JWT claims. Okay. If we can't access the claims, we're just going to return false anyway. And let's say if JWT, if token type, JWT claims, And in our base case, we'll just return false. So we can, if we have a parsed token, we can just verify quickly, is this an access token or not? Because if I'm protecting our resources using the access token, I want to verify that it is an access token in case the user provides the refresh token instead. Okay, next I think we can write like a sort of test just to verify that each of these different methods are working as expected. So I'm just going to go in here and do JWT test. And I'm going to make sure that this is a underscore test package. And we're going to do test JWT manager testing T. And I'm going to go ahead and create an instance of our config. Okay, and let's do the JWT manager. Okay, we're passing in the config here. And let's do JWT manager dot generate token pair. I want to create a user ID. Oops, let's check the error. We should have no error. And first thing I want to do is parse each of these tokens that come back. Parse the raw string on each of these tokens. So I've got JWT manager.parse. I'm going to parse the access token. Require no error. Okay, so now I've got a token pair. For each of the tokens, they should be not null, of course. I don't know if I need to check for that, but I'd rather check token pair dot access token dot claims dot get subject. I want to make sure that this matches our user ID. So let's do require equal T. Let's do user ID. Ugh, this is annoying. Okay. Okay, so for each token we've received, we're just validating that the subject is, in fact, the user ID that was passed. Another thing we can do is verify that each of the claims are what we think they are. So we could just verify that access token issuer error is equal to token pair access token claims get issuer. And we can just require that there's no error. And then let's assert that it's equal to the host and port that we specified. And to be honest, I'm not going to validate every single claim. I'm not going to do assertions on the timestamps and things like that. But this seems sufficient as just making sure the issuer is correct and the subject is correct. And I'm doing the same assertion here, require that API server host, or basically the address, matches the refresh token issuer. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and run this as is for now and just make sure that everything is executing as expected. Okay, and I want to make sure that I'm using a string here. So let's do string, because I got an error related to this being comparing the bytes to a string. So let's just do this string. That's good. Okay, so this is passing as is. And I also want to verify that our isAccessToken method also works. So we should assert that require true token pair dot actually let's do JWT manager dot isAccessToken token pair dot access token, and then require false. Okay, let's run this again. Oh, got a failing test here. Let's see. Okay, I believe this is actually failing because we're not parsing the token as I previously was thinking about doing. Let me try modifying this so that we are actually calling this parse before returning these access tokens here. So let's do access token is equal to I'll just call this signed access token. All right, and I will replace that here, access token. And then I'm going to call this signed refresh token. And I will replace, actually I'll do refresh token. Okay. Now let's run this and see what happens. And that passes, okay? So interesting. Yeah, so the parse method is actually populating a lot of information, all the information on the token object itself that we don't get when we generate it. So I actually like this better, just creating the signed token here, reparsing it to populate all the information, and then returning a complete access token here. So sorry for the back and forth on that, but I think this is probably a better way to go. Okay, and we're going to make one more assertion here. We're going to go ahead and parse the raw token and then compare that against the tokens that were returned. Parsed access token error is equal to JWT manager dot parse, and then we'll do token pair dot access token dot raw require no error, and then we should require equal t, let's do token pair access token and the parsed access token here. I'm going to go ahead and okay, that is running and passing. I'm going to do the same thing for the refresh token. Parsed refresh token. Parsed refresh token. Cool. And we are good to go here. I think we are good to wrap up this JWT manager. And I think we can move on to working on our sign-in endpoint.